Good evening. Welcome to the April 24th meeting of the Conservation Commission. I would like to start off tonight by with our one item of continued business, the enforcement order for Sai Dang at 258 Varnum Ave, an enforcement order due to debris dumping within the 100-year floodplain. Is anybody here from this party? I know that they've been contacted. Nobody's online.
No, we did get an email from them today asking to reschedule again.
All right, we'll keep it on the agenda for the next meeting then. Can I get a motion to continue?
I'll make a motion to continue this item to the May 8th meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Second?
I'll second that.
Seconded. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion continued. I'd like to take an item out of order. Do we need any motion for that? I don't think we've ever done that before.
Yeah, you should motion.
Would anybody be willing to make a motion to take 115 Lowell Street and 129 Christian Street out of order tonight?
I move to move the last item on our agenda, the request for determination for Llewellyn and Christian Street, to the next item on our agenda.
I'll
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'd like to discuss the request for determination of applicability by Berkeley Development LLC, project location 115 Llewellyn and 129 Christian. Request for determination of applicability has been filed by Berkeley Development, seeking a determination whether there is a resource area subject to the Wetlands Protection Act present on the site. Is there anybody here to speak about this item? Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Ian Ainsley from Meister Brem. We're waiting for our wetland scientist, Lou Curley, to show up. I haven't seen him yet. Is it possible that we could be heard later in the meeting?
I have no problem putting it back to where it started.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people here. Maybe we can readdress it once he's here. Give me a wave.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, I move to cancel that change in the agenda. I was afraid that might affect some people, but
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, request for determination of applicability, Genesis LPD LLC, 72 Willowdale Ave, Tingsboro. Project location 963 Chelmsford Street. A request for determination of applicability has been filed by Genesis LPD. The applicant is seeking to repave the existing parking area with porous asphalt. The proposed work is within the 100-foot buffer zone of a protected wetland.
Do you want
Good evening.
Sasha?
I heard a voice. I think we have the applicant here in front of us, so I'd like to start with him.
Hi, how's it going? Yeah, we were just looking to repave our existing parking lot. They were planning on putting a 1.5-inch layer of porous asphalt on our currently porous parking lot. So we're not looking to change anything with the structure or affect any of the water flow.
Okay, and no changes to the limit of work, limit of asphalt?
Correct, yes. So most of what's been there is actually deteriorated, so they're just pretty much putting a fresh layer on. It's pretty bumpy right now.
Okay. And you'd be cleaning that as, removing anything disturbed or any loose debris, any sand?
Yes, correct. So they'll pull that all off-site. And during the work, they're basically working on-site. There's not going to be any equipment stored on the public roadways or of any sort, and it's going to be put off location. It's a 2-day project.
I'm all set. Any questions?
Yeah, I have no issues with this. So. I'll make a motion to grant this project a negative
Can I
3.
ask some questions?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
The pavement out there, did you say you were removing it all or just where it's loose?
No, just the loose debris is going to be cleaned up, and then they're putting a fresh layer of porous asphalt on the current porous parking lot.
Okay.
So it's
Is it
not
the
really like a full repaving. It's kind of just like getting it back to where it was. Some of it's deteriorated over the years.
Well, I've noticed that it deteriorated. I wonder if there were any improvements in that porous pavement that maybe would make it last a little longer?
So we're hoping this new porous technology is based in asphalt. It has the same drainage. Our previous one was based on concrete. So I'm hoping that with it being like, asphalt's typically more forgiving in the New England environment. So I'm hoping it'll last a little bit longer and be able to tolerate salt better than the concrete did in the past.
Okay, so you're not expanding anything?
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Could I just get your name for the record?
Yep, Gregory Doyle.
Any other questions from the board? I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to grant this project a negative 3 designation.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, another RDA, Donick Corp. at 15 Spalding Hill Road, Pelham, New Hampshire. This project location is 585 Market Street and 480 Suffolk Street. A request for determination of applicability has been filed by Donick Corp. to demolish the existing structures at 408 Suffolk and 585 Market and construct a 33-unit mixed-use development on the property. The proposed work is within 100-foot buffer zone of a canal. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Russell Tedford. I'm project civil engineer with Hancock Associates on this project here. Here tonight also as a member of the development team, Will Susi. I'm here to represent Donick Corp. for the proposed 4-story multi-use building comprising of 33 apartment units and approximately 6,600 square feet of retail at 585 Market Street and 408 Suffolk Street. To give you a quick background on the parcel, it's actually 2 parcels combined into a total of 14,310 square feet lot area located right at the intersection of Suffolk Street and Market Street. The site currently has a building on site, a few different uses, a convenience store, a barber shop, some vacant storefronts. It's currently located in the urban mixed-use district and the newly created multifamily overlay mid-rise district. So the site is currently surrounded by a variety of uses. Looking plan left is the Acre Crossing development, which is also another project that Donick Corp is currently constructing. Bottom of plan is Market Street. Plan right is Suffolk Street, and on the other side of that is the Western Canal. And then plan top, I guess, is would be considered a mix between commercial and residential uses on that eastern border. So the existing topography currently slopes from the rear and side property lines down towards the intersection at Market and Suffolk Street. As mentioned, the resource area is the Western Canal. As shown on our site plans, we've sketched in via aerial imagery the face of the canal wall, and that's how we created the buffer that casts across our property and onto our lot area there. As mentioned off the top, it's a 4-story mixed-use building. The retail portion is proposed to be on the bottom floor, with the remainder being the 33 apartment units, floors 2 to 4. Also, a noted feature on our plan here is a pocket park available for passive recreation for residents of the building. In this pocket park, we have our underground stormwater management system. It's comprised of storm check chambers, typical plastic, similar to a Cultec plastic fabricated chamber, intended to recharge and attenuate groundwater, or attenuate stormwater from proposed rooftops and the pocket park. Utilities from the site are going to be drawn from existing mains out in both Market and Suffolk Street. And then as part of our permit site plan approvals and gone through the zoning and planning process, we have a very high-level erosion and sedimentation control plan. That includes erosion control lines like straw wattles, silt fence around the project area, as well as catch basin filter bags, and all structures located along the project's vicinity. This project has also received approvals from Planning Board for site plan approval and a special permit for the multifamily mid-rise overlay district, as well as variances from ZBA. So this is our final stop in the permitting process with conservation. I guess in addition, we also reached out to the Lowell wastewater stormwater utility team and gotten approval for our underground system for kind of like to couple into when we go for building permits. We basically got a rubber stamp to go ahead and construct that. I believe that wraps up my presentation. Here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Very exciting that you're getting this close to filling up another lot in the acre. Very, very exciting. Nice to see. Thank you. I think you have ample storage to a storage space back away from Suffolk to be able to store your materials and equipment outside of the buffer zone to the canal. I would like to ask that I don't know where else you'd put it really, but if you could utilize that space for storage whenever possible. I understand it's a tight lot, but other than that, I mean that's all I would really request here. Anybody else from the board?
No, I mean, I think it's an improvement on the lot that's there now. I think it'll be nice to have a little more housing as well. And it sits far enough away from that canal, so I have no problems with this project either.
I think the concern that I would have would be perhaps flying debris that might end up in the canal, or you did say that you were putting up silt fence. Would that be, you have it planned on your own property, the silt fence?
Yes.
Because I was wondering if permission could be gained to perhaps put it across the street along the canal, which would make more sense to me to keep, because, your lot is so tight there. I don't know who has control over that particular side of the canal, but as long as we have some silt fence up, that's good.
Yeah, we can certainly accommodate
And
that.
certainly it looks like this is going to be an improvement for that particular corner.
Yeah, I don't know. I always forget the exact ownership of this. Somebody owns the banks. I don't know who owns the fence. I never heard about that. I'm not sure if it's the city's fence, if we can actually even ask you to put silt fence on it. But if it is the city's fence, and you could double up the silt fence across Suffolk, that'd be great. Double go at it twice. And I certainly spent enough time picking up trash over there, so any bit helps. We appreciate it, guys. Anybody else? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant this project a -3 determination.
Second.
Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. Next up, we have a request for determination of applicability brought by Elaine Pantano of 74A Roper Street, Lowell. Project location is 74 Roper Street. A request for determination of applicability has been filed by Elaine Pantano to extend the drainage pipe system at 74 Roper Street. The proposed work is within the 100-foot buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, Brad. Our engineer from McClure Engineering should be on Zoom. His name is Robert Duff. I'm not sure he was able to get in.
Would you like to have him introduce the project?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to have Robert introduce the project?
Yes, please, because he
All right.
worked on the plans.
Go ahead, Robert. Good evening.
Good evening, board. For the record, Robert Duff, McClure Engineering. We're working for the client, Elaine Patano. The project we are proposing, it's a very simple thing. We currently, one of the downspouts just discharges open. I don't know if you have the plan in front of you. It discharges onto a sidewalk. Not a very safe situation, not a very practical situation. All we're intending to do is basically at the downspout, pick up the downspout, go underground, under the road, driveway, roadway, however you like to term it, and then discharge on the other side into a swale that's currently there. That is the extent of the work, which is trying to improve a kind of a poor situation. So quickly, that was it. There's not much to this, so work should be done relatively quickly. Mostly saw cutting the pavement, putting the line in. They also they are in the process of repaving the parking area, so they want to have this work completed before they do that. That is all I have at this time. Any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Elaine?
Well, right now, the week before Christmas, within a week's time, we had about 7 inches of rain. And this particular building that had 4 basements that flooded because we thought there was a drain, but it turned out through the city, we found out that there was no drain there. It's a leaching drain. And so that water was all groundwater backing up into the basements. So we had to cut the pipe and send the water out onto our roadway. And all winter long, we have had our landscaper out sanding and salting because we didn't want anybody to get hurt, and somebody could easily get hurt. Right now, it's just a lot of water. Some pumps are still flowing. They're still pumping water out, even as of today, and it's never stopped. And we really need to do something with this.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. This is an outfall pipe for a leaching catch basin?
Yeah, basically.
An overflow outlet structure, basically?
Yeah, going to be underground so people don't run over it.
So what, for Robert, what treatment is here for this water?
It is all groundwater.
Well, no,
Well, it's
because
also-
it's a leaching catch basin, and it's taking surface runoff into that basin. No.
From what we have been told by the city engineer, he came out to look at our place, and it's just we always thought that leach was a drain pipe going someplace, but that's not the case. It's just with that building, several buildings are sitting on a natural spring, from what I have been told. So it's all groundwater that's leaching up, coming up.
But this pipe is connected to a catch basin. No.
No, we thought it was, but
No,
no,
it isn't.
no.
Okay.
30+ years we thought it was.
So, Robert, can you explain to me one more time how this is connected to the rest of the system?
it's,
Oh.
I'm not sure like I said, it was understood that it was tied into a leaching basin, which probably, anybody had any experience, they do have a life, and if they don't, eventually they plug up. So I think that's what the situation was here. So the intent again is to take the water and roof runoff and clean water and just, again, pipe it under the road, out of the way, and discharge it into the swale across the street.
Ooh, so you just said it is connected to the leaching catch basin.
Well, that's my understanding, yeah.
I mean, you're the engineer here.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So it is connected to a leaching catch basin, and it is an emergency outfall.
No, I think it's tied to emergency. I don't believe we have the intent is to utilize the leaching basin just to repipe it from where it discharge it is now. It comes down and then it goes into a pipe, I believe, along the western side of the building. So the intent is just to disrupt the pipe and just repipe it underneath, so it's not discharging out onto the sidewalk as Elaine mentioned earlier. So to grab any flows, bring them underneath the street to discharge across the street into the swale.
So you have a leaching catch basin which has failed due to its age, and it's backing up into a pipe
Well,
that
I
is.
wouldn't say it's the age, it's the amount of water.
Well, that's that's not what your engineer said. So
Okay.
maybe you guys should decide what the reason for it is.
Well, we had the city come down, the city
Okay.
engineers come down. Okay, they drained that leaching drain. They sucked all the water out with a new truck. It's only 5 feet deep.
Okay.
And so much rain happened that it just filled up. And it's constantly filling up.
So it has
basin's
nothing to
just
do with
not
the rain
working.
if it's constantly filling up.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't have anything to do with the rain if it's constant. I'm very confused right now. It seems like I'm getting two different stories from you and your engineer.
Well, I'm not an expert in this field.
Okay. So I would like to defer to your engineer for questioning,
Please do.
if you don't mind. Thank you. The issue is in the big rains when it fills up all the way, but it's also all the time because of the groundwater.
Well, I think that I think it's also compounding the problem is the amount of rain we've had this year.
Yeah, so you have more
problem is-
groundwater because there's a high groundwater table. Sure.
Well, it's high groundwater, but you do have the surface, the rainfall, which is, we've been inundated with rain this year. So the problem, whenever it does happen, we do have a precipitation event. Obviously, the grounds are saturated, so the system it's not working. It's causing a problem, and this is the solution we've have presented to get it fixed.
But if you're not at the groundwater table, then the percolation rate doesn't change in soil if you're not below the groundwater table. So it should
Say
be
that again, please.
infiltration rate of soil is a constant. If you're not underwater, soil drains down.
Yes, correct.
So you're not underwater because you're not in the groundwater table. So this thing isn't draining any slower than it always drains. But for some reason it's not working.
Correct.
So
It's
is
not
this
functioning?
I'm having trouble putting the dots together. Is there anybody else? I'd like to, if you don't mind, there's another member of the public who I would like to invite to speak. Great, lovely, thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. Joseph Uzina, resident of 90 Roper Street, Unit B. This is a property that I bought in Lowell and I woke up one morning and there was 4 inches of water in my basement. I was absolutely befuddled as to how it happened. I'm a military engineer from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and I became extremely concerned and went outside because I guess about 5 out of the 9 or 7 units in this block were flooding. I was worried about electrocutions, I was worried about slips and falls, and I went out to go in sandals in the middle of winter. As I went out there, I discovered that this leaching pit was overflowing. The water was coming downhill and it was flooding back into the units. It was originally designed that the water coming from the units was supposed to go into the leach pit, but expected to flow uphill. Water does not naturally flow uphill.
Can you clarify what you mean by that? I understand the water doesn't go uphill, but
Sorry.
how does the water get from the units in, or
It could not. So any water that was coming either from the groundwater that was coming into the units and the sump pump was pumping it out, it was kind of flooding right back into the units because it could not get to the leaching pit. The water from the parking lot that was being collected from natural rainwater was going into the leaching pit. This was coming down naturally into and feeding back into the unit. So it was almost creating like a regurgitating effect. I'd be more than willing to provide a little bit of drawings and if there was a future request of this, or add a little bit more light to it, because I'm trying to help solve it as well.
it sounds like there's an existing pipe that feeds into this catch basin that it goes uphill
That is correct.
to the basin.
That is correct.
What goes into this pipe?
Well, from my unit direct, there's 5 units, I believe, and from my unit, the sump pump that is going out or water off the roofs. The design is actually engineer needs to look at it because it is not a very perfect design. It has a lot of flaws, and I'm assuming that this design was probably done maybe 30 years ago.
So it's taking this pipe. This pipe is acting as the outfall of the catch basin. When the water in the catch basin doesn't actually flow up through the grate, instead it flows out down this pipe, which is also taking your roof water and your sump pumps.
Correct.
And so instead of overflowing on the street, it's overflowing at your foundation.
Absolutely correct.
So there's 2 problems here, right? Is that we've got a lot of rain, and who knows if that thing can actually handle, that catch basin can actually handle the rainwater. It sounds like it can't, right? Because it's not getting any new water from your pipe that doesn't go up downhill, it goes uphill.
Absolutely correct. It was a leaching basin designed to dissolve the water into the soil, and absolutely it cannot hold the capacity of rainwater, the increased rainwater that we've been seeing. And then, I don't know if I'm able to add a little bit more to it. I'll wait.
So, this solution, and I'd like to go back to the engineer if possible. This solution captures that pipe that is the outfall, the existing outfall basically of the leaching catch basin, and it continues that pipe to run out into the wetlands.
It will, correct. It will go across the road, discharge into the head wall we proposed.
So this is a system that you've a response to a failure that you've designed, which dumps water into the wetlands that doesn't get treated whatsoever. Surface
Some of it's
runoff.
clean, some of it is, yes, some of it's the roof.
You can't tell me that it's clean and some of it's not clean. What's going on right now?
Well, we believe it didn't need to be treated. It was just a solution to repair a problem out there with water running off on the sidewalk and such.
So
if you want us to apply, some kind of BMP for TSS removal, we can look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly can't support surface runoff going into a wetland without any treatment. There's 5 other people here next to me. 5, yeah, just double checking the numbers. But
I'm
that's
in
my
agreement. We need to clarify this a little more and get a
Your mic's not working properly. Just switch the other one.
Sure, we just need a little bit more clarity and get a better sense, perhaps with some diagrams and an idea of exactly what's there now, how's it functioning, can it take on this additional, amount of water, and then if this remedy that we're looking for is actually going to be the best remedy, or is there an alternative that's better?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that would probably come from the engineer, because upon further investigation, it was determined that the basements were not supposed to be constructed. The city of Lowell knew where this was being built, and because it was being built on a high water table, the city had said, no, we're not building it, and it went ahead and built it anyways.
Right. So if we're talking about a poor design, that may not be the solution, and we may have to look at this a little bit, more intently.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the basements and going backwards through that, because that's a lot of information for a drainage solution, and we can just try to get a reasonable solution for the drainage. Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
No, sir. Thank you very much, Council. I do appreciate it.
So I invite Elaine back up. Go ahead.
I will add that I've been living there for 38 years, and for 38 years, the sump pumps have handled the water. This year, 2023 and the beginning of 2024, it's just overwhelmed because of the rainfall.
The global model for this area for climate change and global warming is that we will experience more rainfall in the future.
Exactly.
So I want to treat every year like this year.
Absolutely, and this is why we've gone the route we have based on what we had the city engineer out from the water department. He looked over the whole problem, and he's the one, I'm not going to say, he told us how to go about this by hiring an engineer, having plans, but we followed all of his advice.
Was it his recommendation to dump the overflow into the wetlands?
Yes.
Who was that?
Gordon Bergeron.
Okay.
And I mean, he didn't tell us to, he couldn't tell us exactly what to do, but he gave his opinions on what should be done to resolve this problem.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely be asking him about his opinion directly in the future. But I think...
Well, that was my question, was if the city engineers, maybe not the water department, but the others,
wastewater from Long Island.
had looked at this, because it seems like, are you going underneath the street with an
Not
excavator?
Roper Street itself, our driveway.
Oh, that's not the public way?
It's not a public way,
Okay.
no, it's our land, our driveway.
Okay, so
And the swale.
you're not required then to get a permit or anything from the city for this?
That I don't know.
There's no street opening permit or anything
It's,
like
Right.
that.
but
Yeah.
I will say that, my mind got distracted, but that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts about this?
Are the sump pumps working correctly? Have those been?
Oh, yes, that's the very first thing we checked. When we
Okay.
had the basements, we checked every single sump pump. And they are, and you can go to the property right now and hear them still flushing. And they are working.
Okay.
Well, it sounds like they're taking water out and pumping it into, some of these units anyway, that go into this pipe that faces the wrong way. You're pumping water into a pipe that then pumps it right back into the basement. So
No,
no wonder
we had
they're
to-
working overtime.
We had to cut the pipe that's going into the leaching pipe field, or whatever you want to call it, and put the water out onto our driveway. Because if we didn't do that, and it was two contractors that said, cut the pipe and send the water out on our street. Because if we didn't, these people living in that building would still be underwater.
Okay.
So you're just thinking that they should have some kind of a filter system on whatever they do?
Yeah, if it's taking sump pump water and surface runoff, then it requires treatment.
Is that something expensive or something easily done?
I mean, it's not free, but the idea of pumping a parking lot into the wetlands is not something that's basically what's been proposed here. It's a worst case scenario, but the water from, the oil, the sand, just because it's a leaching catch basin doesn't mean it's, got a sump that will 100% hold all the sand,
Right.
It's not its purpose. Its purpose is to allow groundwater, provide storage to allow groundwater to infiltrate.
Would it be possible to look at this as a two-step remedy, perhaps one for the immediate need and one for a permanent resolution? I'm sorry, too loud? Oh, sorry about that, guys.
No worries. Things work great.
Yeah, but I was thinking a two-step resolution maybe, because I'm also thinking about the fact that they have water coming into their properties. That's a little bit of a concern. It's an emergency.
We have 4 units that experience 3 to
So-
4 inches of rain in their basements. I mean, that's not
So
an idea.
perhaps, and this is the question that I'm posing, can we look at a temporary resolution, but also with a long-term solution, and perhaps making sure that it's a two-step, but perhaps where we can make it a requirement that you'll have to follow through with the second step of perhaps some filtration or something to make sure that the water that's going into, the area of concern won't be contaminated. That's the big concern.
I understand that, and that's a very valid concern. However, when you look at the source of the water, where it's coming from is Fort Hill. We have the city plans on that, through the cemetery, through our property, all the way down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, at any point, this water could be contaminated. Especially if you look at Epping Street, which is behind our property, when the city plows, there's a retention pond back there. When they plow all the snow there. That snow has salt in it, calcium, whatever they put. So there's this stuff going in there that has nothing to do with us.
I guess the point, we're not saying that you guys are contaminating the water.
I know you're not,
You know,
but what I'm saying is that we're not, this is not pure water to begin with.
Our job is to make sure that
I understand.
we don't allow any additional impacts to the wetlands.
Yeah, I understand that, and that's a very valid thing, but I wish that you guys could have come out there to see what the situation is, so you'd have a better grasp of what we're living with.
I live right around the corner.
I know
got my
you do,
number.
but have you come out to see what's going on?
I'd be happy to meet with you. It sounds like there's some. I still don't think I really understand exactly what this
I know.
thing does, and I'd
And
love to
that's-
see it.
And that's why I invite you out.
That would be great. I will come out. I still don't like this plan, but
If you can come up with something better, God bless you.
so how
When
do we
can
want
you-
to continue this?
Brad, when can you come out?
We can decide this after the meeting, Elaine.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess the idea, are we looking at a continuance to look at a filtration option or to the next meeting?
Yeah, I think it would be a great idea for the engineer to take a look at some treatment options. And kind of start to think about that kind of a plan. As far as an emergency situation, I understand that the sump pumps are working really hard right now. It sounds
Yes.
like there's not currently water in the basements.
They're dry. They've been dry since we cut the pipe and put the water on the sidewalk.
That's great to hear.
But that's not a solution.
It's not a solution, I agree, but I don't think it's an emergency either. I understand there might be some desire to move forward because you're trying to repave and get this thing rectified, because you can't repave underwater, sure. But it's not a frozen condition, fortunately. You know,
Right now.
we're a long way from the winter.
Right, but we lived with that for December, January, February, and part of March.
And I have no interest in having that happen again.
Neither were we.
Yeah, absolutely not. I don't think that this is a hard situation, you know, a hard solution here.
No, it is not.
I just don't like the one that was presented. So I will come out, but I would recommend that the engineer look into some treatment options for this runoff, and we can figure something out.
That's fine.
Yeah, we're not going to drag this out to the next winter or anything
No, we
like
can't
that.
afford
So,
it. We
no.
can't afford it.
So-
We can't afford somebody getting hurt.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, no, absolutely.
And neither can the city, because that could fall back on you guys, too.
Would you accept a motion to continue to the next meeting?
How do you feel about that? Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. I'll make a motion to continue this item. Oh, do you have something? Okay.
Saying, it's fine to move it to the next meeting, certainly in favor of that, but I think that let's do, everyone, you know, the engineer, everyone, let's look at all possibilities and alternatives, okay? Let's not just wait till the next meeting and then come, oh, we need to be more prepared, and if there are no other alternatives, then we can make a decision.
That's fair.
Okay. I'll make a motion to continue this item to the May 8th meeting.
Second.
Seconded? All in favor?
Favor? Aye.
All right. I'll be in touch. We'll start there.
All right, we can set up some time.
Thank you very much.
Not in the middle of the meeting. I've got a lot of other people here. Thank you. Next up, we've got a request for determination of applicability that we started a little bit earlier. 115 Llewellyn Street and 129 Christian Street.
Hi, sorry about that. I thought we were fourth on the agenda, so I was a little late. I didn't
All
know we
good.
were going to be first, so
Yeah, you were-
apologize for that. Luke
no
Hurley, Hurley Environmental and Land Planning. I'm here on behalf of Berkeley Development, the developer who's here. You may or may not be aware of this project. It is, as you had mentioned in the opening, it's two existing parcels located between Llewellyn Street to the west, Reservoir Street to the north, and Christian Street down to the east. There are two vacant parcels right now. There is an existing garage there and a driveway. There was a house. There are two parcels. The smaller parcel is about 2 acres. The larger parcel is about 4.4 acres. Land slopes down from the...
You speak a little louder, please. We just can't hear you too well.
Sorry, I'm also turning away from it. The land slopes from the west to the east, per the plan as it shows, from Llewellyn Street. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. The land slopes from the west to the east, from Llewellyn Street down to Christian Street. It's kind of gradual to moderately steep in some places. For the most part, it's mostly vegetated. There's kind of a grass swale that comes down through this area. I looked at the site and did a full delineation in the fall. I did not find any wetlands out there. I walked back and forth and took vegetation notes, full soil samples, full auger holes, per the DEP manual and also per the Army Corps standards. I didn't find any wetlands out there. I did submit a letter to the engineers. I don't know if you got a copy of that or not. What they're proposing to do is build houses around the perimeter for single-family houses. So as you said, we are here for the RDA. I don't know if you have any, it's kind of a quick overview, but I don't know if you have any questions on anything. I can try to answer anything about the...
So you say
conditions.
you assessed it in the fall, prior to all the rain. Have you gone back to reassess it?
I have not, but when I was out there in the fall, it's been raining every other day for the past 17 months, respectfully. So when I was out there, the only dry month I think we had in 23 was May. It was a little dry in May, and then it just started to rain. And, from everywhere that I've been, I'm out of New Hampshire, but a lot of the stuff in northern New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire, northern Massachusetts, it just kept raining. Every 2 or 3 days we'd get an inch of rain, or all summer it rained, all winter it rained. So I haven't gone back to look at anything. I don't know that anything would change. As I say, when I was out there in October, I believe it was late October, it was as wet as far as I could tell as it would ever be, because as I say, it was, the water table has been up everywhere from everything that I've seen in my wetland delineations and my soil mapping work. So I don't know that anything would change, but I haven't been back out since the fall when I did the delineation on the site, but there were no wetlands. But that's when I did the site evaluation.
I don't really have specific questions about the project at hand, but I am very hesitant to make a determination about whether or not these are wetlands. I think that there's a lot of people here tonight that disagree, and I would like to hear from some of them if there's anybody that's interested in speaking. Not necessarily in disagreement, but
I think we should speak first.
okay, if you'd like.
Okay, you said you were out in the fall.
Correct.
Had the site been cleared?
No.
Okay, so this is a large concern of mine. I was out there today, and
Not well, part of the interruption, but not that I'm aware of. Not since I've been out there. There was an open area roughly in this location, as the current owner did let me know that there was debris and brush, and there was all kinds of other stuff from when the house was habited in the past before he bought it. But
Okay.
I don't know if you're asking, has the whole site been cleared? Not to my
No,
knowledge.
it hasn't.
And when I was there in the fall, as I
whole place
say,
has not been cleared.
no, there was an open area through here,
Yeah.
but there was
So-
no recent activity of any cutting or clearing that I was aware of.
So that was about what I suspected, was that probably sometime in the last season, maybe summer, fall, there was equipment brought in there. You can still see the tracks. And there's evidence that there was grading done. There's piles of dirt pushed up, and there's evidence around at least a couple of the trees that there's more fill there than was before, to the tune of 6 or 8 inches perhaps, around some of the trees. And I was very disappointed that someone who had a project as large as this planned would go in there and start work before coming to all the boards and running the plans by us. Because certainly after the place has been disturbed, it's pretty hard to tell what was there originally. And even though it has been disturbed, it appeared to me that perhaps, and this is where the concerned neighbors, we always hope will chime in and notify us that work's being done on a parcel that they have concerns about. But it almost looks like there was actually a certain amount of fill material brought in there in the form of perhaps crushed up rock and, other materials. So definitely, I noticed the report here does say that there was a drainage area, which you've mentioned, from approximately slightly to the north of the building that's still on the site, to the east, to the northeast of that, and it exits out approximately opposite East Richardson Road. Now, there are 2 what look
That area,
like
yeah.
fairly new catch basins on Christian Street that I don't know who might have installed those, whether it was the city or the prospective developer of this, with a lot of crushed stone piled up both along Christian Street and around the end of the main drainage area. And this drainage area today was running. It was running with water, even though the area had been disturbed, and the drainage had to try and navigate tracks of vehicles rather than what I presume there was a natural, perhaps drainage, some kind of a swale or something there. And I can only suspect that there must be quite a lot of water exiting that site onto Christian Street, or they wouldn't have installed two storm drains only about 20 feet apart. And I'm assuming that those storm drains were something that was necessary to handle the amount of water that essentially must be coming down there. Now, I mentioned that there was a wet area up to the northeast of the existing building, and this area has been degraded a bit by grading of or equipment just running through there. And I suspect that that may have been an area where water actually stood at some point. And you know, to come in the fall when we usually see dry weather and then, you know, have this area disturbed, and then when you come out today, it hasn't been raining very hard for the last few days, and yet that water was still running through there. So I'm trying to figure out what's the nature of this water. You know, is there a ledge underneath this land that perhaps is preventing the water from percolating into the soil? Is it a spring that comes out of the earth at some point on that property? Is it an intermittent stream, or does it run all year round? This is something the neighbors would probably know better than I. And I'm wondering if test pits have been done to find out exactly, do we have a high water table? Is there ledge underneath there? We have a plan of the existing showing topography, but it doesn't show anything about a drainage going through there. We have a plan of land showing lots set off without topography, but we don't have any plan showing whether this development is going to require cutting, filling, moving around. It's very steep. I can't imagine that on some of those lots you'd be able to build without moving some earth around.
Yeah,
Or building walls or something of that sort, regrading of some type. So I'm, first of all, and I don't see that I'm wondering if the city engineers or the DPW have been involved in the drainage issues on this particular lot. If there is a permanent flow through there, this needs to be designed so that, you know, perhaps a detention basin is going to be needed, or we were just talking about a site where untreated water was going to be going into, you know, storm drains and wetlands and things like that. This site is on the top of a hill, and the interests of the act that I think come into play here are prevention of flooding. And one of the persons who grew up in this neighborhood wrote me a fairly lengthy thing. He couldn't be here tonight, but he is concerned about also pollution. He apparently remembers that there was some kind of an orchard there, that perhaps they used some kind of sprays that, if it's allowed to run off, would perhaps affect people if the runoff increases from this development. So that's a concern. Yeah, all of these questions, I think, are probably easily answered and easily taken care of in proper planning of the site if the development is to go forward. But these are the kinds of questions that are answered in a notice of intent,
Right.
not in a request for determination of applicability. I just don't see the answers here to the questions that we need to ask. And therefore, I'm of the opinion that this is under our jurisdiction, that it does require some detailed site work, and that a notice of intent would be the thing that would address that.
Well, and that's what we're here for tonight, is for the
I
RDA to
I
get your
understand
opinion
that,
on
but
that.
I wanted you
And
to
then with that, we would move forward with,
I wanted you to understand what
steps
the
as they apply.
concerns were.
yep, no, it's understood. And those catch basins down the bottom were put in by the city. They weren't put on by they weren't installed by the new owner.
And
They
when
wouldn't have
was
the
that
authority to
done,
do
do you know? Recently, it looks like.
Those catch basins have always been there. They serviced them from the runoff from the reservoir that was running down the street along the berm into those catch basins. It was actually running water down the street. It wasn't off the property. Because I talked to the guys that were doing it, and they said all they did was put riprap around to catch the water that was running down the street behind the berm. And they explained it to me, because I asked them, where is this water coming from? And they think that the reservoir is leaking, because obviously the people that live north up here have water in their basements, and they're higher than our property. And they've told me they have water in their basements. So it's got to become, if the reservoir is leaking, that's a major problem for the city. But water obviously runs downhill. And if water's coming off that street and running down there, there's nothing that can be done except for a berm.
So there's another issue here as well, which is that you've asked us to make a determination of whether or not there's a resource area. I have no intent on deciding whether or not these are wetlands. I certainly don't know the history of this property, and I'm not an engineer. On top of the recommendation that this project is absolutely NOI worthy, I would like to request a third-party evaluation of whether or not the wetlands exist here. I certainly can't, in good faith, grant you the full permission to go forward with an A&R.
Nope, and I think that there's precedent. I think last year we did a similar project who was asking similar questions, and we had a third party come in as well. So there's precedent that we've already done this as well, so.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you've already done it.
Yep. I figured that's the process anyway.
All we did was go in there and clean up the mess that the previous owners had. You went in there with a tractor and made a mess, beyond belief, brush and everything out of the way. We moved all the brush out, put some loom in there, graded it, and seeded it. It was always open in there. There was never trees in the center. It was always open.
I would very much hope and expect that your interpretation of what work was done is part of a written report and presented to the third-party engineer who's doing the wetland evaluation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. If we agree with the idea of a third-party review, we should highlight the things which we believe should be focused on. I think that Louise has given us a fantastic history of and some of her concerns about the potential of wetlands on this property. The minutes from this meeting should certainly be reviewed, and even a videotape from the. Got a mouse back there.
That was my elastic broke, sorry.
Brad, are we allowed to?
Yes, so we've got a
Are we
great
allowed to
guideline.
put a time restraint on it? Like, say, we would like that third-party evaluation to be done at prior to a certain point? Because in the summertime, it's going to be much drier. If they do it relatively sooner, I don't know if we're allowed to do that.
I don't either. What do you think about that? Did you catch that question?
No.
When can we put a timeline on the requirement for the third-party evaluation? Because it's gonna be a lot drier if they wait until the summer to do this, as opposed to doing it right now.
Right.
I believe the city has to find the third party, is that correct?
Yeah, we have to put it out to bid, so I'm not sure exactly how long the bid has to be open for, but
And I'm sure that the time of year comes into, consideration. I don't know if we can put a timeline on this. I mean, and it unfortunately looks like it will be in the drier months.
Yeah, where the city has to put it out to bid, they will take time for them to find the contractor or the engineer to do that work, so.
I think maybe the question that needs to be asked is that going to answer all the questions that really should be asked about a development this size in the city of Lowell? We don't have much lately that's a project this big.
Well, I think that.
And there are a lot of people living below, down the hill. This is a very dense neighborhood all the way up from Bridge Street, and is just deciding whether we've got water running down the middle of the thing. Another opinion, is that going to be enough to ensure that we are not going to be sending floodwaters somewhere else?
Well, I definitely want to have them move forward with the NOI.
Yeah, I think that this third party is just for whether it's a wetland or not.
Yes.
That's the only thing that determination is making, this third party determination. And then go from there, they'll go to the NOI, and those questions will be asked during the NOI process.
It's basically, they've applied for a approval not required project here. And so their determination is that it is not subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, and therefore approval not required. So.
But wouldn't this speed things along as far as they're concerned if we tonight decided that this was something that we wanted to request a notice of intent?
Well, we can do that.
Because then
we
they
can-
can
well,
start
so-
working on that part of it as while we're waiting for the wetland sign.
Their engineer's evaluation is that this is not an area subject to the Wetlands Protection Act.
Mm-hmm.
We, seems like, don't agree with that interpretation. But we are not engineers. And so the way for us to challenge the application as an A&R is to request a third-party review. And if they find that it is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, then we can say now at this meeting that we expect an NOI to be filed.
If I could just speak for a minute. My name is Ian Ainsley. I'm an engineer from Meisterbrem. Just for clarification, the A&R is a subdivision process. It divides the land. It's an approval not required under the subdivision control law. And what that basically is if you have frontage and area, the requirements to create a lot, you can create that lot. That is totally independent of any work, construction, you know what I mean? It's just a reconfiguration of the lot. That process is actually already done. We did file the A&R with planning, and that was endorsed by the planning department, and the plan's been recorded. So the property actually has been subdivided at this point. We haven't proposed any work, any construction. All we did was change the property boundaries, basically. And I believe as part of that A&R process, the plan was reviewed by the engineering department because they have to sign off on it as well. So I think somebody had asked if this had been looked at by, Lowell City Engineering, and it has as part of the A&R process.
So thank you for the clarification. I misunderstood the definition of A&R.
I still would like to hear from, I know we're not required to take statements from the public for a request for determination. However, my visit today was only my second visit to the top of the hill in my life, even though I've lived in Lowell all my life.
That's incredible to me.
It's not really something that most people know exists. So I would like to hear some feedback from the neighbors, and I would hope that they would be more in touch with us in the future as far as their concerns about what's going on that property.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak?
Just very quickly, I was pulling this up. It looks like it took about 3 months for us to get the bids, but then for them to actually complete the work on a similar project in 2022. So,
Thank you.
I'm a resident of Centerville. I've been there the past 8 years now, living Centerville.
I know you're usually over here, but name and address, please.
Corey Robinson, 5 West 10th Street.
Thank you.
And I worked in that area for the past 20 years. In the middle of July and August, if you drive by, there's water coming off that property, running down the hill. You can see it. The ground's ash gray from being hot in the sun all day, but there's still a steady stream coming out in the middle of July and August. Winter times, that's a nightmare. The hills, because of the water coming off that parcel, it's solid ice. That's why those basins have been installed and readjusted over time to try to alleviate some of that runoff. But no matter what's been done, you're not alleviating that. Whatever's running from that property, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's wetlands or what's over there, but it's not just a standard parcel, so to say, and it's not just a project. And part of that A&R process, yes, I know it involves a subdivision, but it also circumvents even having to notify abutters or any of that stuff. So, I mean, and this isn't the first developer that's looked at the parcel. There's been studies done in the past of that parcel, and other developers have walked for whatever reason. So I think this warrants at least a thorough investigation on the conservation side, just to see really what are we looking at within that parcel. And as been mentioned, pesticides and everything in the past, definitely a possibility. I mean, we don't know what's there, but we do know that water is seeping out of that parcel. So thank you.
Robert Gignac, 91 Llewellyn Street. Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioner Varnum, thank you for coming up to the Hill for only your second time. You were absolutely spot on with your assessments of the site. So I live at, as I mentioned, 91 Llewellyn Street. I've lived there nearly 30 years, right down the road from the site, actually a direct abutter from the rear of it. I've seen a lot of activity on the site since the new developer or the new buyer, the owner has purchased this property. Shortly after purchasing the property, there was a lot of heavy equipment on site. There was fill brought onto the property, actually right where on the GIS system on the map you see a wetland line. And so in talking to my neighbors, they also saw all this going on. You know, in our opinion, in our observation over the last year or so, is that it almost appears as the developer was filling in wetlands, and to avoid this whole conversation, which is disturbing when someone's trying to develop, you know, a piece of property that's been vacant my entire life. You know, it's important to us as neighbors, many of which are here this evening, that we have someone at the table that we can have conversations with and trust. The concerns that you mentioned, Commissioner Varnum, are the concerns that the neighbors share. They're concerns that we hope will be addressed through this process, and I appreciate the Commission's thought process to require some additional information. My concern here is, as I've mentioned, for 30 years, I've known this area to be a wetlands. I walk this area nearly every single day. I've seen land change since the new developer has taken over. It's still wet. It looks a lot different than it did, and it's significantly impacted the wildlife that has historically roamed in the neighborhood as a result of the wetlands. So, you know, we're looking for as much information as possible to be ensured that we have a partner at the table who's developing this property, and that we're doing things above board to ensure that we're not flooding our neighbors down the hill, that we're not putting contaminants into our air or into our soils that we've been hearing about for decades. And we ask the commission to really look into this as deeply as you possibly can, because this is our neighborhood that we truly enjoy living in. And this is going to be a big change for us. We're looking at more than a dozen houses in an area that hasn't been developed. And it's going to change the look of the neighborhood, and I get it. I understand houses are coming in. We all knew that that was going to happen. But speaking to a developer that was interested in the property in 2021, I received a plan. The plan clearly showed wetlands. The developer was building around those wetlands to ensure that they would encroach on the wetlands. I shared that plan with the DPD a few weeks ago, which I believe was part of the process to get it to the agenda this evening. And so it has been wetlands for probably my entire life, and miraculously it looks like it's disappeared according to the engineer's report. And so that's concerning to the neighbors and myself. So I thank you for your time this evening. Again, Commissioner Varnum, you're welcome up on Llewellyn Street anytime, because you were spot on this evening. Thank you.
I'd like to make one note about Robert's testimony, that if you or anyone else sees what they believe to be a filling of a wetland area, this is a serious violation of the Wetlands Protection Act, and our conservation agent should be notified immediately to anyone here, to anyone listening. We appreciate the neighbors, looking out for the wetlands. The office will send out an agent right away and evaluate whether or not an enforcement order needs to be issued, and we would move toward the intent of rectifying and removing any fill, any dumping, seen as it, that is how it was brought up. I'm not saying that's what happened in this case, but we appreciate the notice. So one other hand was raised.
Hi, my name's Kathy O'Malley. I live at 82 Llewellyn Street. I have lived there 39 years this summer. I built my house there in 1985. What was it, 22 and 25 years old, I think we were when we built. My husband and I grew up in the Highlands. We were not at all aware of the topography of Christian Hill. We built our house, and the first spring, the whole basement was flooded. I came up here, spoke with Frank Grady, the former engineer for the city, and the whole engineering department. They showed us the plans of Christian Hill. Christian Hill is filled with wetlands. There are springs underneath all of Christian Hill. If you were up there this afternoon, did you say, visiting the area? I don't know how far around the neighborhood you drove or walked, but as we speak, there are 3 houses putting in French drains because their houses were flooded. They're in the process right now of trying to remedy that. Most of the people on Llewellyn Street and Reservoir Street have sump pumps. I can't speak to Christian Street, whether or not two Christian Street residents, both sump pumps. Sump pumps are the given up there. I don't know what is going on specifically with that land, but I believe it to be one of the largest undeveloped pieces of land in the city. And before this developer tries to put in 17 homes, I think there needs to be an investigation. We're talking about asking people to move into homes, and they're going to have the same situation my husband and I had, flooding. I know it's buyer beware, but it's our responsibility also to build smartly. And as far as what the developer was talking about, that he just moved some things around, that is fallacy. There was equipment up there. That land has gone from densely populated with trees to pretty, I don't want to say barren, but quite changed. Definitely, there were culverts or digging. I don't know what you call this, but there were at least 2 large areas filled with crushed rock. Those were not there. I have lived there for 39 years. What the land looks like now is not what it looked like a year and a half ago. So I appreciate this board and anyone else in the city that can, look into this before it is developed. Thank you.
Can I say something?
We have other members of the public who would like to speak first.
Not one tree was taken down by us, not one.
We don't require registered speakers for this commission.
Okay. My name is Mike Harrington. I live on 201 Christian Street. My house is just above the reservoir water tanks. My house has a sump pump, French drain, and a couple of dry wells. Most of the houses up on Christian Street, as you were saying, that they do have French drains, sump pumps. The water table up there is unbelievably high, and I don't know what happened, so what transpired. But there was a friend of my daughter's moved into the house at the very top of Christian Street. And she said to me one day, she said, can you come over to my house and take a look in the basement? I have this square hole, it's about 3 foot by 3 foot, into the basement, through the basement floor, into the ground. I says, that's for your sump pump. And that was the house that was at the top of the hill. I was born and raised on Christian Hill. And one of the things that I did as a kid in the wintertime is I skated on a pond called Duck Pond in the middle of that development area that this gentleman is going through. Yes, there was a pond there at one time, and I don't know what happened to it over the years. Apparently it might have got filled in. And again, I don't know how deep it was, but it was there. I am also on the board of the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group. And last year, we had someone from the water department coming in to explain what a process that they were going to take down some trees in the reservoir. And at that time, they were questioned on whether or not the water tanks were leaking. And he informed us that periodically those water tanks are inspected, and as of the last inspection, there were no water tanks leaking. So I know that the gentleman had mentioned that the tanks were leaking. I think you'll find out that that's not true. I hope that the board takes into consideration what people have spoken on. I'm not saying that the entire parcel is wetlands, but I think there's a section in there that is, and that should be looked at before any further development is considered. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dot Oste, and I've lived since 1974 on Reservoir Street. I've got water in my basement once in a while, but my main concern is when we first moved there, we were warned by people being new in the area, because we taught at the university, we're looking for a house. Oh, don't go up in Christian Hill area, it's a beautiful area. But she said you have to be really careful, chemicals were dumped right in the lot, in the apple orchard. What are you talking about, 1974? I remember that was before a lot of the environmental, like lead, asbestos paint and all that was going on. And she said, no, she said, I'm telling you right now, I think it was called the Lowell Gas Company at the time, the gas company used to, with permission of the apple orchards, I don't know if it's true, but would dump stuff there. I don't want to mention names, different people who in the past are now retired, who said they dumped stuff there from the utility companies. So that's another mind. I'm a retired teacher, and I'm concerned when they tried to do this plan back, I think it was 2021, and I think they had to redo the whole plan. I guess there was good faith involved in that, I don't know. But to just cover it up with a playground area, the part was contaminated. So that's something I would like the city, when you do the discussion about the wetlands, I'm really concerned about the leaching chemicals, minerals, whatever you want to call it. If somebody's back lot of a house that is in the future going to be built there possibly is attached to some type of contaminants in the ground from long ago that were supposedly, whether legally or illegally, dumped there at the base, especially at the base of the, the top of the hill beacon going down. reservoir, rather, going down Christian at the bottom of that lot. Thank you.
So, at the very least, if any soil is exported from one lot, and now that it's a bunch of lots, this makes it really hard to balance a site, because it'd have to be each one individually. But if any soil leaves any lots, then it should be tested. So unless he can manage in a future development to keep all the soil on each lot without crossing property lines, that evaluation would be required by law. Is that everyone?
Somebody over there.
Are you raising your hand or you're scratching your head, John? Okay. So, would you like, okay.
The previous owners did, they just pushed them up into a pile and tried to clean them out. You know, it was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
We never took a tree down at all. And we never put anything, that blue line is on the plan, the blue line with this, it has the GIS.
Yeah.
We never went near that. That is looking from the bottom street to the left of those catch basins is where that blue line is. It's in between the two streets. It's not, the trees are still there. There's not a tree missing. They're talking about what's over here. There's water runoff. Obviously, you got a grade like this. There's a street up above. The street up above has water. I understand these people's concern about people having water in their basement. That's not what this is about. If they have water in their basement above this land, that's not us. We're not pumping it uphill. Because obviously everything's running down. It's running down from the top to the bottom. And all the water is on the street. If they lived there for 30, 35 years, they would know it was coming down the street, not off the land. Because I looked at it before we bought it. And I did test holes in there to make sure that it's all natural ground. The water was running down the street, behind the berm. And the guy from the DPW, the curb, I said, it looks like it's coming from behind the berm. Kicked out some dirt and was running right behind. I don't know where it's coming from. Obviously, there's a lot of water in this whole area up here. The reservoir around tanks, it's just a reservoir. If anything, they should be lined. But I don't know where the people that are above us get water. I don't know how. But any new construction you do anyways, you always put a perimeter drain in. You always put some buckets in every house we've ever built. And anybody that does it right, that's what they do. But I can't control all the water that's on that hill. Above us is water. But I'm just saying, we never touched anything with that blue line was. The trees are still there.
Well, I'd like for that analysis to be part of the third-party review. I mean, if there's clear indication of fill as Louisa states, then they should be looking at that as well. So the answer to the question of where's the water coming from is springs, right? That's the only way that water ends up higher than, you know, the rest of the surrounding earth. And you, there's just as much likelihood that they're on your property. I understand that there's some clearly above, but there's, we heard tonight, all over the place there are springs. There's a lot of water up there. We don't know where it's coming from. Sounds like you don't really know for sure where it's coming from either. And yet there's no wetlands. So I think I think. Yeah, I'm not. I didn't mean that we wanted to slap you with an enforcement order by any means.
Never touched any wetlands.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing you of doing that. I mean, that's not. I haven't surveyed the place.
It's been there for. You can see trees growing out. I didn't even touch those. But
we've heard the testimony. We started this discussion with a pretty clear path, I think. Mm-hmm. One more.
Good evening. Eric Kitcher, 34 Livingston Ave. I was the former executive director of the water utility. So on that hill, there are 2 water tanks. Divers go in them, and they do inspect them. So the tanks are not leaking. The reservoir itself is considered a high-hazard dam. It's not a reservoir. It is in our terms, but by statute, it's a high-hazard dam and does get checked. And when the water was running down, we had many residents at the time say, oh, that's leaking, that's leaking, that's leaking. Well, we had fluoride to the water, and there was no fluoride in the water that was down there. So I just want to clarify that the city's side at that time, there was still water running down those areas, and those things were all checked. And I just want to clarify that so that when people come back and they say those tanks are leaking, divers go in there and they make sure every inch of it has inspections, there's pictures, there's all kinds of development on it. And I just wanted to clarify that for the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Oh, thank you for shedding light on a gentleman regarding the tanks, because that at least eliminates that from the equation. Again, if we take your word on face value.
I appreciate everybody taking the time to come out for their neighborhood. Always nice to see an attended Conservation Commission meeting, no matter the circumstance. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Have we had the motion for the third party yet?
We have not.
I'd like to move that the city engage a third-party wetland scientist / engineer to look at the site, to evaluate the possibility that wetlands are present on the site, or that areas of flooding, given the fact that it appears that parts have been regraded, and report back to the commission before we rule on anything else regarding this application.
Yeah, we'll do that first. Yes.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So we have approved a third-party review, and we should probably continue this until the point at which it's ready. You had suggested earlier in the meeting, Peter, that this was a 3-month process. Do we want to pick a date 2 months from now, just in case everybody's got their ducks in a row? And would you guys accept a 2-month continuance on this project?
On the whole project, or just the area we're talking about, Blue Line?
This is a request for determination of applicability. We are trying to decide whether or not there is a resource area on this project. Our jurisdiction is within 100 feet of a resource area. It's his opinion that there's no resource area. There's a lot of testimony tonight that suggests that there was. We're not engineers. And we can't tell you where a potential resource area may or may not be. I don't think there's anything for you to do on this project until it's decided whether or not we can.
So 2 months?
So the amount of time that it will really be before a decision is made about whether or not there's a resource area is how long it takes for the city to find, solicit for bids, hire, and have this engineer perform an analysis on whether or not this project is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. Peter indicated that's probably a 3-month process, but we need to pick a date to continue this to. So I suggested 2, just in case it happens more quickly than he had guessed.
I think part of our issue is the mapping that's been referred to, the GIS mapping that shows possible, runoff areas, is limited to only one portion of the site. And I think as somebody on the commission mentioned, the areas that we're talking about are only generally a small portion of the site. So I think the concern is for the areas that are very clearly dry. You know what I mean? That's
I also heard mention of a map that was submitted to the engineering department from a previous potential developer that showed wetlands through a majority of this, even different than the blue line that's on the wetsite. I don't know. I didn't see the thing. I don't know what the plan looked like.
Conservation, when we first bought this property, if anything was ever submitted. They said no, nothing was ever submitted. They don't have any record. All they had, they gave me a copy of that with the blue line in it. So this is the only thing that's showing. So you'll have to get somebody out there.
I'm not saying that plan was ever submitted. It might have been the reason why another potential developer backed out. And it's not somebody. It holds no more bearing than our determination. I'm just saying we don't know where it is. I can't authorize a project to move forward that we're not hearing a part of the project tonight. We're hearing your project. I can't segregate. I can't.
All individual lots.
There's one application here for all of your project location as the entire block. If you want to come back and submit RDAs, separate RDAs on projects that you can explain how they have zero potential of being within 100 foot of a wetland area, you're welcome to try that. But I think you might have the same turnout, and we may have the same uncertainty about whether or not wetlands exist anywhere around this, and where are the springs, and Louisa had a list a mile long, and I don't know where the wetlands are. Or aren't. That's what we're here to do today is figure out the wetlands.
I mean, the fact that this is coming up as a item means that that you're unsure and we're unsure where these wetlands are. So
We were definitely unsure. That's why we hired.
no, and that's why we need to do a third party separately to find that answer before any building can happen, because we don't know exactly where they are or if they're there.
So
Why don't we revisit this, say, 3 meetings out? That would be a month's delay. And certainly if something happens faster, then
yeah, I mean, I can guarantee you that there's no way that a bid comes back and they do the work in a month.
no.
We'll take whatever
If we get
whatever time.
No 2 months. We've been waiting this long, so.
Yeah.
we get a report faster, they can put it on the agenda.
Right.
But these neighbors want to know when that's going to be.
Yeah, because saying we continue it and we say that meeting date, that's the kind of the announcement of or the notice.
Yes.
So we can't really change that afterwards.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Our June meeting is June 12th. Oh, no, I have 2 June meetings here. Yeah, we're not in summer schedule then. So we'll say June 12th.
Okay, okay with June 12th.
Is that a motion that Perry made?
I'll make a motion to continue this item to the June 12th meeting.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. We'll see you in a couple of months, guys. Thank you. All right. Our final item on the agenda tonight is the April 10th meeting minutes for approval. Any comments on the minutes? A motion?
Motion to approve. One more time.
Second?
I'll second.
Second motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And a final motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor. Thank you, everyone.
Aye.
Good night.